Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Live It Up. This is the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life you absolutely love. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Amy will be joining us in just a few minutes as we learn about a relatively new concept called personalized medicine. What is it, and could it be for you? Remember, health is the first wealth, so stick around for that. As a reminder, if you have questions that you would like us to address on or off the air, you can send them directly to me at fletcher@fletcherellingson.com. Okay, let's get to today's email, which comes to us from Janet. It says, "Hello, Fletcher. 2.5 years ago, I got divorced. I have mostly been focusing on my career and kids, but am now at the place that I would like some companionship in my life. I've gone out on about a half dozen dates and find it awkward. I've been out of the game so long I have no idea how to find someone that's compatible. It's intimidating. I feel like a fish out of water. Any advice? Thanks, Janet." Hey, Janet. Thanks for reaching out. Strong people ask for advice. Strong people ask for help. Now, I hear the whole dating scene feels awkward and intimidating. You're not sure how to find a partner that's compatible. So here's what I would recommend. And it's actually the same advice that I give couples who have been in relationships for a long time and find themselves struggling. The neat thing about your situation is that you can do what I'm about to suggest before you get into a new relationship. And why is this so important? Because if you're not super intentional as you go back into that dating scene, you're highly, highly likely to resort to old patterns and default ways of thinking that will determine your results. And the results could land you in another relationship very much like the one you left 2.5 years ago. So here is what I would do. Make a list of all the qualities you want in your future partner. Let's call him Mr. X. What are all the things you want in him with regards to education, his physical attributes, his sense of humor? What's his ability to interact with or parent children? What are his finances like? And how about his interests? Is he patient? Is he kind? Is he funny? Is he adventuresome? Is he interested in learning and growing? And what are his values? You want to get as detailed as you can on the attributes of Mr. X, okay? And then when you're finished with this, what you're going to see is one heck of a guy. In fact, you might even wonder if he's out there. Well, the good news is that he is, and I really do believe that. And the list you've just created may even give you some clues as to where he can be found. And what do I mean by that? Well, if, for instance, you have on your list that he's fit and health conscious, or a triathlete, for instance, he may be hanging out at the gym or meetups that are about living a healthy lifestyle. Now, if you're deeply religious or spiritual, this may be a clue as to where else you can look. But before you go out to find this wonderful partner, there's one more very important list you need to make. Are you ready? If you were to find Mr. X with all these wonderful qualities, then my question to you is, who would you need to be in order for him to be attracted to you? What qualities or attributes would you need to have? So I encourage you to make a list that details the qualities that you would need to have to attract the man of your dreams. Get really specific. Understand what your values are. Understand what your standards are for yourself. And be real. If you're not an honest person, then don't expect to attract someone that is honest into your life. If you're not patient, then don't expect to attract someone that is. If you're poor with finances, you're likely to attract that into your life as well. If you're full of judgment and criticism, don't expect to attract someone who's accepting and tolerant. Get real about who you are and who you need to be. Spend some time on this and have fun with it. Focus on it, and I believe it'll happen for you. Stay in action, Janet. You've got this. Now, before we go to a break, a quick reminder that if you're stuck in any area of your life, whether it's finances, relationships, career, health, fitness, then visit my website. It's fletcherellingson.com. You're not alone, and you don't have to try to figure this out by yourself. You can find all sorts of free resources that can help you move forward. All right, next up, after this commercial break, we're going to be talking with Amy about personalized medicine and what that may mean for you. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to Live It Up. We are here with Amy. Hello, Amy.
Hello.
And what are we talking about today?
We're talking about personalized medicine.
All right. I heard you talk about that. I heard you mention it. I don't really know what it is, so explain it to us so we know.
Yeah, so personalized medicine is a way to describe the method of tailoring medical treatment and lifestyle recommendations to each individual on a personal basis, based on their own genetic profile and molecular profile. So this approach would help prevent future disease, it would treat current disease, and it would even be able to, and even this approach helps us know how someone might respond to a certain treatment or a medication. And it's become much more easily achieved to do this as genetic testing has become less expensive and more genes have been mapped and more variations of genes have been mapped. So an example, in 2001, to sequence the whole human genome, which is 6 billion letters, like DNA letters, it cost $300,000. And then in 2014, it only cost $1,000, and it's even getting less expensive.
Wow.
And I just bought the test kit on 23andMe, and it tests for 690,000 DNA variations, and it was on sale because it was Black Monday, but normally it's $129. So it's become much more affordable, and we've been able to use it more in practice, and people can do it on their own too.
Wow. So can you put that into layperson's terms so we can understand that a little bit better?
Like about the DNA part? Yeah. So I've heard a good way of explaining it recently, and they were talking about looking at DNA like a giant recipe. It'd be a really long recipe given that it's 6 billion letters. So the recipe tells each part of your body, each cell in your body, what to do and how to do it. So the instructions in the DNA are actually what determine whether like a stem cell becomes a heart or becomes a kidney. That's the DNA telling it what to do. It also controls, you know, what eye color we have, how tall we are, our hair color. It controls, you know, what diseases we may develop. It controls all kinds of things. And so each person has 23 pairs of chromosomes, and that your chromosomes are the tightly bound coils of DNA. So the science of personalized medicine looks at each of those individual letters in the DNA and helps us understand what we might be prone to or how we might respond to something. And what's kind of cool to think about too is among humans all across the world, we're actually 99.5% identical genetically.
Wow. So
all those differences that we see in people, how we look cosmetically on the outside, what disease we develop, all of that is really based on 0.5% genetic difference.
Whoa, 0.5?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive. So how is this being used now?
So yeah, we can break it down in a few different ways. So one is using genetic medicine or personalized medicine to know about a disease that someone will be predisposed to have. So a lot of people have heard of the BRCA1 gene. I asked you the other night, I guess you had never heard of it, but I thought most people had heard of it. So that's the gene that makes it much more common that, or much more likely that a woman and a man actually can have this problem too, but a woman to develop breast cancer and or ovarian cancer. And so if, say in your family you had someone who had breast or ovarian cancer, especially premenopausal, and they were tested for BRCA1 and then you were tested and were positive, the recommendation is actually that woman would have both of her breasts removed and her ovaries removed after she's finished having children, so she doesn't develop those cancers. So you're using personalized medicine to know a disease that someone's predisposed to. And the second way would be to help us confirm a diagnosis. We use genetic testing all the time, actually. Just the other day, I had a boy who maybe had this type of blood cell, red blood cell problem, and you use genetic testing to confirm that diagnosis. Or there's a gene to know whether someone has cystic fibrosis called the CFTR gene. And back in the day, we would just have to look at someone's clinical picture, look to see if a baby got sick, maybe it runs in their family, and then we would go just based on clinical findings, oh, they probably have cystic fibrosis, but now we can actually confirm that genetically, and so then we're able to treat someone earlier and have a better outcome. A third way would be to look at prognosis, so a prognostic marker would be usually used in cancer to know if someone has a type of cancer that's going to be more aggressive, whether they might need chemo, whether they don't need chemo. That helps us know what kind of treatment to use. And lastly would be using personalized medicine to help us with prediction. So to know whether someone would benefit from a certain type of therapy, and they're called targeted therapies, and they're most commonly used in colon cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, to predict how that tumor, based on the tumor's genes, how it's going to respond to medication.
Okay. So aside from preventing and treating cancer, how do you see this type of medicine helping in other health issues?
Yeah, so it already is being used for other things, and it's going to, I really think this is going to be the future of medicine. So one area right now where it's, that I'm excited about is looking at it for Alzheimer's dementia, looking to see if someone is predisposed to that. So there's something called the ApoE4 allele is what we call it. And if a person has one copy of it, which is on the 23andMe panel, if you choose to get that reported to you, they have a 30% chance of having Alzheimer's. If they have two copies, they have a 50 to 90% chance of having Alzheimer's. So, you know, before we wouldn't necessarily, historically, you maybe wouldn't want to know that because, well, what is there to do? But the more we're finding out about diseases, we realize how much lifestyle and how much other disease plays a role. So like in Alzheimer's, we know diabetes and pre-diabetes is really going to be a huge risk, and also smoking. So there'd be things you would know to do to help prevent that Alzheimer's. So one of the sayings that you may have heard of is genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So if you know that, you know, say you knew at 18 that you're predisposed to a certain disease, you could really manage your lifestyle quite well and do everything as right as possible to try to prevent that disease.
I just want to interrupt because say that quote again. It's just so important, I think.
Yeah, so that lifestyle loads the gun, genetics loads the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
So you might be predisposed to breast cancer. Well, there are certain things we know that increase your risk of breast cancer, like consumption of alcohol, how much alcohol you drink, and your weight at menopause. And there's other things. So say you knew that you were predisposed to that, then you could do something to make a difference.
Yeah, so lifestyle is hugely important.
Yeah, and you know, like my passion is to have people feel empowered around their health, and I want people to feel ownership and know that they have so much power in determining their current and future quality of life.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, this brings up an interesting question. Having this knowledge, how will that affect people's decision-making with regards to lifestyle?
Yeah, and so they've studied this a little bit. I'm not familiar with a lot of the studies, but it's actually interesting because, you know, us humans, when we don't have pain in the moment, we're not very good at changing what we do. We like to be comfortable, like you talk about with mindset. So initially, you might be like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm at risk of this. But say you learn that when you're 18 and you have, you know, 40 years of maintaining a certain lifestyle, it hasn't, I don't know that people are really great at keeping the sustained changes unless they have a really good mindset to know, keep it in the front of their mind, like, hey, listen, I don't want to have Alzheimer's, I don't want to have diabetes, I don't want to have cancer. So it really can empower people, but they do need some consistent help and keeping that motivation and inspiration present.
Yeah, so mindset, again, is going to make the difference there. Yeah. And, you know, when they're younger, they may be like, I may have that predisposition, but no big deal, I'm young, I feel immortal. Yeah. But when they're in their 30s or 40s, I mean, it's still a great time to take your health on, right?
For sure, for sure.
And you can still manage and make a difference.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, so much lifestyle and chronic disease is totally reversible. You know, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, reflux, amongst other things. And so, you know, yeah, you get to 30, 35, 40, even at any age, it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, so it's not too late.
Yeah, it's not too late.
Start now. Hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to continue our discussion of personalized medicine. Hey, welcome back to Live It Up. We're talking with Amy about personalized medicine. And my next question for you, Amy, is this going to affect the marketing industry as far as food and fitness and those types of industries?
Well, it definitely, I haven't seen that yet, but I could imagine a future with that. Like, are you positive for this gene? Well, you know, we have the right fitness program for you, because there already are tests. I don't know if it's on the 23andMe, but there's another company called Nutrigenomics, and they do some genes that look at, you know, gluten sensitivity, lactose, caffeine, exercise tolerance, muscle mass, whether you're good at high or like high aerobic intensity. So there are other genes that kind of show maybe where your sweet spot may be. And so I really think that more this becomes commonplace, that people know their gene status, that it's going to become more popular.
It seems like an opportunity for like the food industry to potentially leverage this, right?
Oh,
especially
for sure.
the health food industry.
Yeah.
And I imagine this is definitely going to impact the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting because already for a while it's been available, some testing, and it's called pharmacogenomics. And you can look and test. There's actually a pretty big panel that we're already using in our practice, and that looks at how people respond to antidepressants and anxiety medication, pain medication. So it's for people who are actually having maybe either getting switched around with their antidepressants, or maybe have pain issues but don't tolerate certain medications. There actually are tests to do to see whether you're someone who may be sensitive to side effects. You may need a higher dose or lower dose. We're actually already doing that, which is pretty cool. There's another example would be the medication Plavix or clopidogrel. There's a gene test to know whether someone is going to have issues with that, whether they need higher dosing, lower dosing, whether the drug may not be effective in that person. And it's really underutilized, I think, mostly because we don't know about insurance, whether insurance is going to pay and how expensive it is. But I really, again, see this is going to be becoming more and more common, where if you're going to be put on Plavix, you're going to get this gene test first.
Gotcha.
But I'm not quite seeing that yet. I think yeah.
Well, how do you see this changing medical treatment in general?
Yeah, so again, that's what I find exciting is, so like take high blood pressure. We have about 5 different classes, or over 5 different classes of blood pressure medication. And you come in to see me and you have high blood pressure for the first time. And I have a few different reasons to pick some medications, but say you need a second medication. I mean, it would be so neat to know, like, oh, this person's going to do well with a beta blocker, or this person's going to do well with a calcium channel blocker. So I think that eventually we're going to really have, once it becomes more common to know your kind of genetic fingerprint, we're going to be able to pick medications that are going to have less side effects, be more efficacious. It's going to help us with drug interactions. So I really think it's going to change in that way. Also, I think heart disease, we do not know. You know, there's so much we don't know about the development of heart disease. So about half the people with a heart attack have totally normal high cholesterol. Why do they have a heart attack? You know, say excluding the people that were smoking. So I think that genetics is going to really help us understand a lot of these processes that we don't know a lot about right now.
Cool. How has this impacted your practice yet, if at all?
Well, I've definitely seen it. Just the other day, I had someone get the panel about the antidepressants. I've done that on a few patients, not a lot. I've had some patients who knew their BRCA1 status, and it helped us understand what kind of testing they needed. And I have had a patient who had surgery where she had her mastectomy. I actually just recently had a patient who had ovarian cancer, and she has 2 daughters. And gosh, her daughters need to know if she's at risk. And so Quest Diagnostics has a new panel, and so we sent off her sample, and I just got it back this week, and it tested for a gene that I had never heard of, but she's positive for it. It's not the BRCA1 gene, so that's really powerful. Well, her daughters are now going to be able to their insurance should cover them getting tested for the gene that their mom was positive for, and then they're going to be able to know what they should do about that. So it's helped me with medications and also with cancer risk stratification.
And then is there, what age is too young to be tested, or is there? There's
no age is too young, yeah, because your genes don't change.
Cool.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, as far as BRCA1 status, you don't necessarily need to know that in your 20s. Hopefully you wouldn't be unlucky enough to have something happen. You know, most women, but you know, you may, because then you may decide, listen, if I'm going to have children, I'm going to have them young, and then I'm going to need to, you know, have surgery by the time I'm 30 or whatever that may be. So But I think just, when someone would be ready to know and be able to do something about it is when they should get tested.
Do you see in the near future that the medical industry it may be the norm where like, hey, you need to have run these tests?
I definitely do, yeah, I do.
Okay. If someone wants to find out more about this, where do they start?
Well, I'm kind of new at getting on the 23andMe bandwagon, but their website has a ton of information, has all kinds of educational videos, really interesting stuff. The panel, they have an ancestry panel and then a bigger panel, and that does give you some gene testing. Your doctor would be able to help you for sure if you thought you were at risk. There also are genetic counselors, and when Wenatchee Confluence Health has genetic counselors come, and if you basically can make an appointment with that genetic counselor, you have to have your family history with you, know what people have had, and then they can make the case with your insurance company about what you should be tested for. So, going to your doctor, asking to go see a genetic counselor, or talking to your doctor, getting online. Again, 23andMe is a great resource. There are some other companies out there. That's just the one that I'm familiar with.
And we literally just a half hour ago sent back your kit, right? So tell them just a little bit about what was involved in completing that process.
Well, you just have to sign up. You register your kit. Then you have to put saliva. You have to spit in this little tube, shake it up, put it in a box. It's pre-labeled, and I dropped it in the mailbox. And then I'll get I've seen the reports, and they're pretty long. I would recommend going to see your doctor afterwards, potentially if you have any questions. But also, again, their website is really helpful. But it's going to tell me my ancestry stuff, but also a lot of genetic information. So maybe I'll have to report back after I get it.
Yeah, really easy.
Yeah,
quick
very
and easy.
easy.
Cool. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, just again, I think this is another tool where you can be empowered to take care of your own health, your own future, and really have the best life possible.
Great. All right, it's time to get out there, be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You have something to offer this world, and we believe in you.